Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Structured Chaos with Kelly and Kyra. We hope that you had a great week and that you're ready to laugh about how none of us have it figured out.
Hi, and welcome back. We have a special episode this week. We interviewed a guest. Her name is Jenny Barber, and she is a survivor of exploitation. And she came on this week to talk to us about her mission to end human trafficking. She owns a local coffee shop here in San Diego. So she told us all about their mission, how they help survivors, and how you can join in on the mission to end human trafficking. It was a really interesting discussion. We learned a lot, so we hope you enjoy it. Let us know in the comments what you think, and we will see you next week.
Is there a universe outside of Bravo?
Did we miss the training manual to our 30s?
No. Are they for real?
Thank God for our girlfriends.
So this week we are interviewing Jenny Barber, and we are so excited to have her here with us this week to share her story. Hello, Jenny.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I know that you're going to tell us all about your story and your business, so we can get right into the questions. Kyra, if you want to start us off.
Yes. So, can you share with us a little bit about your personal story and how it led to opening up Talitha Coffee?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have really experienced just so much in my life that has really led me to this place of being really passionate about combating this issue. I have been working in the anti-trafficking space for about 15 years now alongside my husband, and I'm actually a C-sex survivor myself, so a survivor of childhood exploitation. For me, it was something that I was exposed to from the very start of my life, and just surrounded by, there was a lot of abuse and violence and addiction in the family that I was born into. And so it was something that I was really aware of, and just normal to me. And so as I got older, I actually was adopted right before my 6th birthday. But it was this weird thing because I had been groomed since I was so young and experienced these things since I was so young. Even after coming to an entire different environment, an entire different family, the mindsets that were really established in me were so strong. And it was like this issue had hooks in me. And so as I got older, there were so many different scenarios where it just kept popping up and being a factor in my life. I think a lot of times, we can talk about this more later, but a lot of times when people think of trafficking, they think of one specific scenario. And for me, facing exploitation in my life often popped up and looked so many different ways, but it really took place my entire childhood, off and on. And so what that did in me, as I really began to overcome some of those mindsets and just even the things of thinking like, this is why I'm here on this planet. Like, this is the only value I bring to the world. And I had people that were in my life that were fighting against that and speaking the opposite and fighting for my value. I began to find healing in my life, and I began to start thinking, you know what? This is something that I can see an end to. I can break this cycle, and I can also create pathways for other people to do the same. So that was really like the very beginning, the thing that first, obviously got me passionate about fighting this, was that there was this really deep resilience and tenacity that was developed in me. And I'm like, I'm going to overcome and I'm going to become a fighter here. So my husband and I jumped into not the nonprofit world really early on. We got married at 19 years old and jumped right in to this world. And for him, it was an issue where he saw trafficking for the first time on an overseas trip where we were actually working in the red light districts. And for him, he saw a young Thai girl sitting with an American married man. And he was like, this isn't like a far off issue. Like, this is such a dynamic and complex issue. And this is breaking down families. This is, it is such a deep attack on society. And that was really our defining moment. That was in 2010. So we've spent the rest of that time really going after fighting this issue. Started a lot of different efforts doing outreaches and advocacy here in the States, primarily in Los Angeles, but then also globally, and helping other organizations with their efforts. So when we started Talitha, it was really from that place of seeing this issue and knowing that there was also kind of a breakdown in the restoration journey. So women would leave, they would go through recovery and restoration, they would get all of this healing and really start down that pathway, and then get to the other side and be like, there's no opportunities for us. Like, what now? What do I do now? And it wasn't like jobs were saying, hey, we're here, we'll hire you. And so they were coming right back to us on the streets, and they were saying, hey, I tried, I went through a really great program, but there really wasn't anything for me. So they were also sending a message to others saying, hey, don't try to leave. There isn't any hope. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I remember these things and believing these things and these lies that there isn't hope. There isn't another option. This is the only value I bring to the world. And I'm like, we have to do something. So my husband had started roasting coffee in 2015. He started with a popcorn popper on our stovetop. And as he got better, he got bigger and bigger machines. But that was kind of the big moment for us. As I was getting really frustrated, he said, hey, why don't we take what we bring to the table and make a difference? Let's start a coffee company to create hope for these survivors and give an option.
That's awesome. I'm really glad that you pointed out that there's so many different ways that human trafficking kind of comes up, and a lot of people have an idea of what it means, because even myself, I kind of have like an idea of what it means, and just you saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, it is like, so it could be so many different things. And I think it's really important to point that out. And also the fact that people who are able to get out of that, that's just the very, very first step. It's something that also I've heard about with like people that are incarcerated. Mm-hmm. They get out, but then sometimes it's almost like easier to be incarcerated because it's like they know they have meals and they know they have a place to sleep and things like that. And It's so sad when there aren't enough resources and help for people to actually do better. So it's really amazing to hear that, you and your company are helping. So I know that Talitha's like mission is to help survivors, and your tagline is that this coffee changes lives. So can you tell us like what kind of jobs and training and support that you offer, and kind of about like the survivor care network that you provide?
Absolutely. So we chose coffee very intentionally because, first of all, coffee is incredible. It brings everybody to the table. It is something that is, okay, coffee is like one of the most consumed beverages. Like most people drink more coffee than they do water, if we're honest. So there's a huge opportunity there. I think we also love that you can make such excellent products with coffee. Because I wanted to create something that survivors could be really proud to be a part of, and show up and they knew they were producing a product that people actually really wanted to buy. So that is, first of all, part of the reason we chose coffee. The other thing is that coffee is something that you can fight exploitation from the very beginning all the way through. So the farms that we choose and we source from, we're actually working with importers that have codes of conduct put in place so that we know that there isn't exploitation, that there's fair wages, and that there's fair treatment of people, even at the very farms. A lot of times people don't realize whenever there's business in place, sometimes there's things look professional up front and there's shady stuff happening on the side. So even with things like farming and agriculture, sometimes it may look like all the business practices are in place, but then there's exploitation and mistreatment of women and children happening on the side. And so we work with farms where we know that that's not happening and they're actually creating hope for their communities. The next thing is that we can create jobs going all the way through to the barista serving the coffee. We're very careful in how we do that. And so our barista positions are often like a second step or second job, or it's somebody who's been out of the life for a while and they feel more comfortable in that type of setting. So we're really careful about not creating unsafe exposure for individuals. So a couple of things that really set us up uniquely. First, we're committed to three things. Every position we have is opened up to our network, so it goes out to survivors first. So regardless of what the position is, it is advertised to survivors first. The next thing is we have the San Diego Coffee Training Institute that is also growing and expanding. And with that, we're able to scholarship all of those high-level coffee courses for survivors so that they can begin to build a skill, build confidence, and build a resume. And then the third thing that we offer is this Talitha Survivor Care Network, which is a really comprehensive network of care to make sure that the pillars and pieces are all in place so that they can really begin to build their lives and integrate into society successfully. They have a job, make sure they have housing, therapy, support groups, legal services. All of these types of things need to be in place so that they can really begin to build the story that they want to. We bring them through a really intentional process when they're with us. Everything from the very beginning interview, making sure that they have all the stability in place in their life, through to the interviewing process. Everything is so intentional to make sure that there's care, support, and safety in place. But at the same time, we are an empowerment model. So we are really focused on not just looking at the survivor and saying like, kind of keeping them in that victim mindset, because that is where you get dependent on the institution. Like you were saying, it's hard sometimes for, people coming out of the prison system to reintegrate into society because it's easy to get dependent on the institution. We don't want to see that. We want to see people achieve full independence and empowerment. So everything that we do is taking them from the very beginning of responsibility and then initiative, leadership, and then launching either up into the company or out of the company. We don't see ourselves as the final job for them. We see ourselves as a stepping stone. And so with that, our goal is to prepare them to pursue whatever goals and dreams they have for their lives. And so when they come to work with us, not everybody knows that they're a survivor. Only the key individuals that are really important in our company for their specific care management know that they're a survivor. We train all of our staff, so they're all trauma informed. They all know how to work with survivors, respond to crisis, de-escalate, all of these types of things. But it's really just a safe and supportive environment for them to come to and really begin to pursue their goals.
That's awesome.
Love all of that. And so I know that you guys just opened up a Bankers Hill location. So can you kind of like walk us through that milestone and like what it means to have this location?
Absolutely. So we started with a coffee shop in Los Angeles, and that was the very first thing that we did. But then we thought, okay, we're going to focus on like the wholesale and like the roasting side of things. But then realized as we came down to the San Diego area, everywhere we go, people are like, where are your locations? We want to come. We want to support more. We do coffee subscriptions. We do wholesale, but people want to actually be a part of the story on a more significant level. And so we have a location at the Liberty Public Market in San Diego, but we just opened up this location in Bankers Hill, which is like our flagship location. It is so beautiful. I am so excited. And what I love about Bankers Hill is that the community is so excited. We were so loved and so supported on our grand opening, like all of the business owners and locals coming in and just being so excited that we were there, because again, coffee is awesome and it is something that brings people to the table. And so all of these individuals are like, wow, we can do something that we're already doing every single day, buying coffee, drinking coffee, and we're actually changing lives. And so having that location there is just a symbol in the community. this is a space where we are making a difference. And I think even starting people's day out, like this is how we're starting the day out. We are changing lives. We're making an impact. And I think it calls people to something greater than themselves. So we're so excited to be in Bankers Hill.
That's so awesome. I know I went to the Liberty Station or the Liberty Market location like early last year. And that I didn't know like about your mission and all of that. I just was at the market, went to grab a coffee and thought it was like such a cute spot. And I do content creation, so I naturally like take pictures of any cute food and drink places that I go to. And then when I went to like post it, I kind of was like looking, at the website and I was like, oh my God, they do like this incredible work. And that just adds so much more meaning behind it because I already was like, oh, this coffee's good and they have a cute aesthetic. So I already like it. And, was excited to kind of just like post about like this cute new place. But then once you hear like all the amazing things and there's this great mission, you feel like I'm supporting that and you guys are really doing the work. It's like, wow, I feel even better about like this. So it's super exciting that you guys are now have this new cafe and I'm really excited to check it out because it's just great to see that you're growing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. Can you talk about some big misconceptions that people have about human trafficking, as well as survivor care that you wish like more people understood?
Yes. So I think, as I mentioned, I think a lot of times people have this idea of what human trafficking looks like. And I think that there are movies and things that have been so incredible for raising awareness, but it really does give a stereotype, right? That it's somebody who's kidnapped. Maybe they go on vacation and, some shady person comes and throws them in a trunk and they get trafficked and it's this big, crazy situation. That does happen. Absolutely. That is what we would call like guerrilla pimping or guerrilla trafficking. It's that very aggressive kind of situation. But what we see even more of, especially here in the States, would be like what we would call like a CEO or like a corporate pimping or trafficking or like a Romeo or lover boy type situation. And so with these situations, with the corporate side of things, these are people who are hooking people in thinking that they have a job offer, that they have an opportunity to make a better future for themselves. We would see this in LA all the time because we would get these people coming from all over the country to become dancers or actors, and they would be so excited to just get an opportunity. And then Hollywood would hook them in, get them in a bad contract, and next thing they knew, they were in a hotel room and being told to do things, and leverage was being held over their heads and things like this. So that is very common. You also see it in massage parlors. You see it in a lot of different like parts of the beauty industry, even things like strip clubs. A lot of times it seems like it's a professional legal thing up front, and then out the back door there's exploitation and trafficking and really horrible treatment of people happening. 89% of those who are in the legal sex industry actually say that they feel like they're completely trapped and they have no opportunity to leave. That's crazy. The other thing that we see a lot is that Romeo lover boy type situation, where either somebody is coming in and they're looking for somebody who is vulnerable, because they don't have parental figures, they don't have a stable family structure, or maybe they have low self-esteem, or they just want to belong somewhere. And they're coming in either as parental figures or coming in as like a boyfriend kind of situation or a girlfriend situation, and building rapport, building relationship, and then turning these individuals out. There's so much psychological manipulation and abuse that happens here. And then you bring in the whole aspect of like our online culture now, and that's an entire different thing. I was at the very beginning of that. So one of my scenarios growing up actually was online exploitation that took place as a young kid, and somebody kind of making me think that it was an opportunity for empowerment, but it wasn't. And I had already been so groomed and so predispositioned towards this stuff that it became really easy for me to fall into it. So I think that's one thing that we have to realize is that online safety is so incredibly important. They're saying that nowadays 9 years old is the average age that children are exposed to pornography. I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the images that you're seeing in pornography are actually exploitation. They're actually not consensual, they're not legalized, and they're very abusive and exploitive. Even things like OnlyFans, there's so much exploitation happening behind the scenes, and they're going under this kind of guise of empowerment and, taking, your power and like becoming really profitable with these things. But it's lies. And so I think that a lot of times people think that trafficking looks this one certain way, but it doesn't. It's so sneaky, and it's so, even grooming tactics are so embedded into our culture. If I were to go through a list of like language that is used in the trafficking world by pimps and traffickers, you guys would be blown away, because a lot of this language is also things that you're hearing in music and in pop culture today.
Wow. It's so scary.
It's just like such an eye-opening and fascinating, and I feel like, to your point, like movies and TV shows like do set it up to look like one specific thing, or a variation of 5 different things. But listening to all of the examples that you've given, like it is so true, and like I very much can see that. And it's like, we hear about people who have been trafficked or exploited, but we never really get the opportunity to like sit down with someone and kind of like understand like the behind the scenes of like the actuality of it. So I think it's just like, it's really special that like you're here and able to share all of this information with us, and it allows everyone that listens, and ourselves included, to kind of then be like aware of these scenarios. So if we do see it happening to someone else or around us, it's like, nope, that doesn't seem right, or like that can lead to that, like now I'm in the know. Like, so I just like, oh, like, yeah, like it happens so many ways. And of course I'm sure how easy it is to get, these people in LA that really come and believe like I'm going to be a star. And it's just like, oh my, like I can't even imagine, because then, yeah, like through grooming and just like also like low self-esteem and not feeling good about yourself, like you then believe like this is it, this is all I'm supposed to be doing, like this is what my life was supposed to look like, or like what am I going to do now? No one's going to want to be with me or hire me or live with me or anything, because look what I've done. Or so it's just like, it's so layered.
Yeah, and it's very embedded into, like you said, very embedded into like pop culture and everything. And we were just talking on an episode that we just recorded about like the ongoing like Diddy trial, and with like all these things with like different celebrities saying like the stuff about Cassie, well, why didn't she just leave? And it's like, it's just so complex. Like, it's not, you don't just leave. Like, it's not
Abuse wouldn't exist if you could just get up and leave.
Right.
Sure. And I think that there's so much, so like, that is such a great example. I spent 12 years in Los Angeles, literally have encountered Diddy. He creepy dude. Like, if you feel it on him. But with situations like that, and looking at people like Cassie, and you're like, why didn't you just go away? You have to realize like the psychological manipulation that is happening is so intense. There's so much fear being instilled. There's so much leverage. Always, how can I have leverage over you? Pimps actually want their victims to get pregnant because they have more power and control over them if there's a child in the picture. So crazy things like that. But they're always looking for, how do we control? How do we manipulate? How do I make you feel, on one side, fearful, on the other side, cared about, and make you feel like you're the most special individual ever. And then it's like, then you throw in things like going to jail, being incarcerated, things like that. They will show up. They will be there when you're released from jail. They will be at every court trial. They will be there whenever you are in the hospital. And so I think that there's this thing of like, for better or worse, I will always be there for you. And it's used as like this promise and this like, this, oh wow, you'll always be there for me. But then it's also used this like, there's no getting away from you. Everywhere I turn, everywhere I go, you will be there. And so these types of things are put in the control is so incredibly intense that's happening there, that to break free and imagine another future, another alternative, a place of hope is really challenging.
Yeah, it's, oh man,
Mhm.
it's so complicated.
Mhm.
Wow.
So, running a business with like the purpose that you guys have, I'm sure it comes with its emotional highs and lows. So, how do you and your team prioritize self-care and advocate for care?
Yeah, this is really important. I would say from what I've seen, being in the I'm dancing between the nonprofit world and the for-profit world always.
Mhm.
And what I have seen that in the nonprofit world, that this type of work specifically has some of the highest burnout rates. And I think that it is because you have things that are really complex, like secondary trauma. But for us, I think that we are really focused on, again, that empowerment model, a resilience model. And it's not just for the survivors that we're working with. I have had so many of our staff come to me after we do a training and we're talking about trauma informed care. We're talking about, what does it look like to be triggered? What is trauma? We all have it. Trauma is literally just your brain being like, too much, too fast. I don't know where to
Mhm.
put this. And so we have those things in our life, and we need to realize, like, oh, our nervous system can actually go to an entirely animalistic place, right? Very primitive kind of space whenever I'm literally feeling like I have to just survive a scenario or a situation. The version of me that you will get when I am healthy and thriving, and the version you will get when I am triggered and stressed, two different people. And I think we can all see this, but we talk about those things in our company, and we're not just doing this for the survivors, we're doing it for all of our staff. And so I regularly get those messages and those calls being like, oh my gosh, like you said something to me, and I realize that when I'm carrying stress or whenever I'm feeling triggered or trauma kind of coming up in me, that I'm handling it in this way. We also go after things like conflict resolution and how to de-escalate others and yourself. And so I think that there's a lot of practices that, on my side, it's very intentional that we're putting these things in and ingraining these things. But I think some people may not even realize, like, oh wow, this is just a great place to work. Right.
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
but I think that that's one thing, is like, what are the daily practices that we're putting in place? What is the daily awareness that we have in place so that we're going through our day in a healthy way? I think that for us, it's really, I think there's also a lot to say for balance. Having spaces where I can kind of like let loose and process and be undone, but also having spaces where I can have fun. Like, honestly, fun is like one of the most healing things. Like, the studies that have been done on like joy and anxiety, joy and fear, like these kind of things, like the parts of our brain that light up with things like thankfulness, gratitude, joy, things like that, it literally makes it so in our brain, things like anxiety and fear cannot coexist with those things. And so we are making sure that we also have environments that are hopeful and fun, and encouraging and uplifting. And I think that's really, really, really key, because I think we underestimate the power of fun quite often. This is a really heavy issue. It's really, really, really dark stuff that we are combating here. And I think that it would be easy to get weighed down by that and be like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming, so consuming. Um, but instead of having that approach, we come into it saying we are hope focused. Like, we are focusing on the outcome. We are focusing on where we want to get to. We're focusing on thriving and living abundantly and these types of things. And so I think that that's really important too, as well as having the systems and structures in place. Like, what happens whenever we have a staff member that is feeling triggered or traumatized or really overwhelmed, and giving space for those things as well.
Hmm.
I love that like so much because I feel like to your point, we've all experienced trauma in some degree, but like what you're doing is obviously at one of the highest levels of trauma. And it is, I think, in all aspects of life, so easy to not remember to have fun and to not remember how to laugh, or like, I want to try to heal this through a more serious conversation. But in reality, it's like, I just need fun. I just need happiness and joy. I need those emotions to run through my body again, to like almost remind me like life is worth it
Yeah.
and there is this other side. And
Yeah.
you know what? I did experience this, but look at all of this joy that I have now. So I think like a lot of times I feel like I've not seen the emphasis on that, you know, because it's more about like, let's heal you,
Yeah.
but in not in like such a traditional way, I guess.
Yeah. I love comprehensive care. And I think that that's really like, we have to remember, like, we are mind and body, right? And so, when trauma takes place, it is affecting the mind and the body. There's an incredible book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it actually talks about how trauma is actually stored in different parts. There's certain cancers that have been associated with certain emotions or traumas or even bitterness. Crazy. So things like that, I think we have to realize, like, we have to, like, yes, it's important to talk it out, but we can't just leave it there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Therapy is important, and there is a place for therapy. There is also a place for somatic care, right? And moving your body. If we're stuck in that stressful place and we feel trauma and triggered and all of this stuff, and we're kind of in that like animalistic reptilian part of our brain, we can get stuck there. And the only way to release that and snap out of it is actually to do something physical. And so we have to, like, when we want to see those with trauma actually find peace and find restoration in our lives, we have to actually look at the whole individual and approach things very comprehensively.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I love that you also emphasize like the importance of self-care for yourself and the other advocates that are helping, because it is easy to burn out when you're in a helping profession, especially with things so heavy, because typically people in helping professions are very empathetic and can kind of take a lot of that on, and you can't help others if you're feeling like bogged down or so heavy. So I think that's really important to prioritize. So when you kind of look down the line the next like 5 or 10 years, what is your vision for like how Talitha will be, and do you have specific initiatives or ideas for the expansion of your business?
Yeah. So when we first started, like I said, we started with, well, we started with a popcorn popper. And then when we became professional, we started with a coffee shop in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles. And we realized we'd be pretty limited. Like, we could hire some survivors in that context, but we wanted to address this issue on a larger scale. So that's when I looped in our now CEO, Mike Lands, and I approached him. We'd been friends since I was like 18 years old. He and his wife. And I said, will you help develop a business model that is scalable? And he said, do you want to hire 5 or 10 survivors? And I said, I want to hire at least 1,000. So he pivoted his life and completely just jumped into the wind with us and joined us. But that's our goal. And that was what got him excited and left his incredible job, was that idea of, what does it look like to address this issue on a larger scale? What does it look like to create jobs for 1,000 people, first jobs, second jobs, and to create this network? We with our first goal was like, okay, we'll create jobs for 1,000, and then we'll, I don't know, maybe like 5,000. We'll have indirect impact through our Talitha Survivor Care Network. The very first quarter that we rolled that out with just a handful of partners, we had already brought impact collectively through that network to over 4,000 individuals.
Wow.
And so we were like, okay, we need to dream bigger. on that one. I have no problem with. I'm totally okay with dreaming.
I was gonna say, like, that's like the best place to be, and
I
like,
know.
oh, dream
I
bigger, like,
know.
great.
Yeah, I know. So it's really exciting, but we are so ambitious. Like, we honestly want to be the next nationwide coffee, and we're already beginning to look at next marketplaces and starting to dream for expanding. San Diego was our proof of concept. What does it look like to roll this model out here and do this thing where we can have really specialty, locally roasted coffee, but not just be this weird corporate mongrel like, but how do we actually take that and replicate it across the country and open up other marketplaces and bring other coffee companies into this journey as well, where it is locally roasted specialty coffee on a nationwide scale, creating pathways of hope across the nation. We're also going to expand our Talitha Survivor Care Network. We have remote and on-site positions right now. So not all of our staff are based in San Diego. We have staff all the way on the other side of the country right now. And that will just continue to expand as well. The Talitha Survivor Care Network will just continue to get more comprehensive and stronger. We really believe that we can see an end to trafficking, but it's going to take everybody coming on board and really combating this issue together. And then our Coffee Training Institute, there is such an opportunity for that to expand as well. I think this whole journey has been like, oh, and we can do this and we can do this. And it all really fits together. And it's not like we're biting off more than we can chew. It all just really fits. We have a coffee machine and repair company. We have the Coffee Training Institute, and all of these things are really just integrating together. And so we see these things expanding across the nation and creating more jobs and more opportunities for survivors and more opportunities for people to get involved and combat trafficking in such a practical way.
That's
That's
amazing.
just so, yeah. And I feel too, like, to your point of like how it's like opened up all of these other avenues like naturally. And I feel like as someone who is a survivor, like to learn a skill set and to own a skill set, it then makes you like feel like I can take on anything. I can take this skill set and integrate it into this or to that. And I think like that in and itself is so empowering. And like, right, we often don't think like, oh, a coffee machine does need to get repaired sometimes. So
Yeah.
why don't we just have
Yeah.
that? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like there's just so many things. It's not just about being a barista or, you know, creating the coffee. Like there's so many other avenues involved in it. So I think that's like really cool to see, like, big picture of everything.
Yeah, we have an amazing wholesale program. So our wholesale program is like the one-stop shop. And so whenever a cafe, a hotel, a restaurant, when they want to come on as a client, like they can get everything they need to operate
In one place.
from us, including tea. Like we even do tea. And so we have so many significant places across San Diego County that are actually serving our coffee as well. And so that's been so exciting. Even the convention center has Talitha Coffee, which is amazing. The Omni hotels, they actually, if you go to the Omni in San Diego, there's actually like it's all branded Talitha, and it's so adorable. I love it. But yeah, there's just so many ways for people to jump on board here, whether it's that or through partnerships or with subscriptions.
That's so
that
cool.
kind of ties into our last question of where can listeners learn more about Talitha and the mission to end human trafficking, and like where can we find you? Like you said, like you just gave a couple examples, like where can everyone else find you guys?
Yeah. So we have our actual locations at Liberty Public Market. We have our Bankers Hill location. But people can find us online at talitha.com. It is so easy to sign up for a subscription. You can get coffee to your house as much as you want. It's a great gift. Like it's such an easy opportunity. And it comes really fresh. Like people can also get it pre-ground if you need that. And so we love to make things easy. And you can also follow the journey on social media by following Talitha Coffee Roasters or personal socials. Like you can follow along and just see this journey. We want to give that really like personal glimpse to really bring people along for the ride and make sure that they feel a part of it. We keep our events and all of that stuff, where we're popping up, when we're doing local events, are all announced on social media as well. And then also other podcasts and things like that on YouTube too.
Amazing. And we will have all of your like website, social media, all of that linked in our description of this episode so that our listeners can easily find you, as well as your cafe location, and the Liberty Market. I'm so excited to to check out the Bankers Hill location, like I said. And I actually just got some coffee yesterday, or Saturday, actually, in the mail. And it smells so good. Like, just
Yeah.
fresh coffee. It's
Yeah.
just, love it. So, yeah. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know, or that you wanted to make sure to get out there about your story and Talitha before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think I'm just really thankful. I think the amount of support that we received, this started out as my husband's and my dream, right? And this was something that we were feeling so ambitious with, but to see people join along with that and to just get really excited, and the awareness that's coming about this issue and how people are like, yeah, we want to create hope as well. And so I think that I'm just so thankful for how people have come and joined that. And we want to be that place. We want to be a place where people really feel like they can be a part of a story, be a part of something that's greater than all of us, and go after bringing support to survivors and combating this issue.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We've really loved hearing all of this, and we are excited for our listeners to hear it as well and to continue supporting the mission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.